Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, and we are so excited to continue our month of May, our Women in Sports Month. We've had some phenomenal coaches, some basketball coaches. We had a hockey coach on, and we're going to continue in the hockey world. An unbelievable coach that we have on here today, someone who I know personally over the years and have been lucky to be able to teach her children and get to know her as a person. And I just know one heck of a coach and was one heck of a hockey player. Is currently the head girls hockey coach at Medford High School, played Division I college at Northeastern University, actually captain senior year, won the Bean Potter senior year as well. We know how great the Bean Pot tournament is in this area. Top 20 in all-time scoring at Northeastern, women's hockey, which is really impressive because it's an incredible program as we saw this year. Coached at Northeastern for 3 years and even had a stint with playing with, USA Hockey for a little bit after a collegiate career as well. So someone who's well-rounded as a player and well-rounded as a coach, and I think represents everything we want for the month of May. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Rayanne Forbes.
How are you, Mr. P?
Anthony. Good. How are you?
I'm well.
So I'm really excited to have you on here today. I think that you just have such an incredible resume and what you've done and how you've been a part of the game of hockey for a really long time. And I'm just going to start out, and I've started out with every guest this month asking the same question, because not only am I having some pretty good coaches on here, but also like some serious street cred to the athletes that some of these coaches were from this month too. I mean, Division I, Division II, hockey and basketball players. And again, you being playing at Northeastern Division I. I mean, your story is going to be a little different because you played hockey in a time period that girls hockey wasn't as popular as the boys game. So girls that played hockey were really playing with the boys for a very long time. So talk about your start into hockey and how it led you down to the road of Northeastern.
So, I mean, the greatest part about my hockey story is just being from this neighborhood in Medford. We just went public skating, and it was the great Tony Bova, who is still running Learn to Skate and in-house program in Medford. He just pulled me aside one day and said, "Hey, you ever think about playing hockey?" And the history was made then. I mean, if he had never asked, I would have never played. So back then I was the only girl playing in Medford. There were a couple of girls that came after me, but going through the program right here, I was the only girl on the team. And then when I hit high school, I had to make that transition for obvious reasons of boys being bigger, stronger, faster. And, I was able to find a program locally, Stoneham Unicorns, which was awesome, a great foundation for me to make that transition into girls hockey. And I can't not mention that when I was in junior high school, my gym teacher knew a gentleman who coached college hockey. So I was able to actually meet him, 7th and 8th grade. His name was Don McLeod, great Don McLeod, head coach at Northeastern, my coach at Northeastern for 2 years. And it was then that the seed was planted that I knew that there was a future, a possibility to actually go and play college hockey. So I had decisions to make in my high school years, and whether to continue playing boys hockey or take the girls route. And that's what I did. And, fortunately, Stoneham, we were national contenders. We played against Assabet, Chelmsford, Nighthawks around here, but we were always in the nationals, in the running, and got great exposure to be able to be recruited to go to college.
What was like the biggest transition for you from jumping to playing in the boys game to the girls game? Did you feel like you were playing faster than a lot of girls, or did you feel like the challenges were kind of still the same? I mean, what was that big transition for you?
I mean, I don't know necessarily that it was a transition, but even to this day, you can still tell, you can identify a girl who has played boys hockey. I don't know what the reasoning is. Maybe the physicality, there's less finesse in the boys game. I don't know what the difference was, but it definitely was, I don't want to say I was faster or stronger, or it did separate. And there were those few players on every team that you could tell also played boys hockey along the way. I don't know what it is, even to this day.
It's an advantage. I mean, there's definitely some sort of advantage there. And,
absolutely.
And I think that, for you too, it speaks volumes for you as a young girl. I mean, when you are playing a sport with all boys and having to play with the boys for a really long time, obviously, that's not an easy task in itself. I mean, it's growing up and, nowadays we don't see it as much because there's girls softball, there's girls hockey, there's girls basketball, there's girls
Right.
everything. But in that time period, there really wasn't. So it definitely, toughened your game up and maybe made your game and fine tuned it. So when you brought it to that, to the other side and playing all girls, it just had you ready and playing maybe at a faster pace. That's great.
Yeah, it
Um,
was definitely different too socially. And think about those formative years in terms of, um, girls and boys in general, and then locker room issues. And every girl that played boys hockey in my generation, even after, and probably still happens today, there has to be that separation at some point of the girls getting dressed in a different location if they're a co-ed team. So yeah, it was challenging, and but for the most part, once you're on the ice, you're a team. You're a team. You're just another. I will say the opponents weren't easy on you, so it did toughen you up.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And then obviously making that choice to go to Northeast. And I know you were choosing between a couple different schools. I think Providence you had mentioned to me, and I forget the other, but pretty dominant women's college hockey programs at the time.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I guess my question to you is what made Northeastern maybe stand out a little bit more? I know obviously you kind of had that little bit of a connection before, but what was it that as a young girl who's maybe trying to make those decisions in the year or two, what was some of the things that really went into your, decision making specifically?
I always prided myself with being a city kid, so that was one of the reasons. And resources and being the ability to be able to come home or commute, because that was going to be a decision I had to make. And for my first year, my fourth year, I did commute. I lived at home just, for obvious reasons of affordability. But UNH and Providence and Northeastern were the top three schools. And I'm so glad I made the decision to go to Northeastern. So much pride there. And it was the connection to Coach McLeod. However, both coaches at UNH and Providence were just awesome as well. So I think just being close to home, I'm still a homebody. I still love being here in Medford. So I think that was basically what it came down to. I could still come home when I needed to.
Yeah, and I think that that's important. Part of your happiness when you go off and play college is that that you're happy. And if you're not near home and you're not near your comfort zone, and that means your team's not getting the best version of you. So obviously that is a big
Right.
part of any decision making that you do. And it's funny. You're the third Northeastern like coach / athlete that I've had on this program. We had Gene Bain on from Medford as well, who
Right.
coaches at Brandeis, and then Chelsea Goldberg, who we'll probably be speaking a little bit about throughout this podcast. Who went to Northeastern and now plays in the PWHPA. So I don't know what it is. Northeastern athletes turn into phenomenal coaches or continue their athletic careers, and they do a great job. So I'm really lucky. I got three of you. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But speaking of Northeastern, I mean, obviously I read your street cred earlier, right? I mean, you were a captain, you won the Bean Pot, top 20 scoring in school history. I mean, playing at that level, I mean, when a coach or a team elects you as a captain, I mean, captains are captains, not necessarily because they're the best player in the world. It's because they have these leadership qualities on top of it that, the team can rally around and rely on and look to. And
Yeah.
so, you have captains on your team and they're elected for a reason. Talk about maybe life after Northeastern, obviously being there and playing, but do you keep in touch with your team still, your
Oh,
teammates, your coaches,
absolutely.
things like that?
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, even after playing, I actually went back and I coached there. So, wasn't ready to leave there quite yet. I loved playing under Coach McLeod, and then my junior and senior year, I played for Heather Lindstad, and I think was the turning point for my playing days. As far as a female head coach. Not that Coach McLeod wasn't great, because he was, but it was a different perspective. First time in my life I had a head coach that was a female that actually had experience as well. And then to continue that, just the lessons that she had, I guess, gave me, I wanted to continue with her in the program. That's one of the things she instilled, was always giving back to your program. Don't forget where you came from. And that wasn't really a hard thing to grasp anyway, because I already felt that way here. Like just always a Mustang, but always a Husky too. And that continued. She in so many ways, like, she just made us remember it wasn't just the time that you were there. You always got to give back. Don't forget where you came from. And so, yeah, going back and coaching, and my teammates and the girls that I coached, they're a lot of who I am today is because of them and the experiences. And I'm still very close. Some of my best friends and my teammates, lifelong friends. And this year was so fun following the program.
Right.
I go back every year for the alumni events, golf outings, but this year was especially fun because they had such a successful year, and we had watch parties every week. So it's been fun. We've had a lot of super moments together, still up to this day. 90 to 94 is when I played. So here we are all these years later and still connecting. Even through the pandemic, it was great.
Yeah, and especially obviously the bond of how well the women's team was doing this year. I mean, having watch parties, whether that's on Zoom or FaceTiming with each other or whatever. I mean, that's a cool way to bring you guys together too during this kind of crazy last year and a half,
Yeah. And it also brought us, like, with some of the newer alum, we're not connected a lot of times until they're out. And it was glad to meet new kids, new alum, and kind of show them the ropes, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that's awesome. I mean, it's amazing to hear that, because you hear that at the high school level, a small high school level, and then to hear, like a big school like Northeastern, and how, the alumni blood runs deep and everyone's there for each other and cares about the program. I mean, it's cool. You guys are watching them on TV as they're playing, obviously, but you were there at one point, you kind of set the path for them. So you feel like it's your championship game too, your championship. If they won, it's how you guys feel. It's great.
Yeah, well, I think some of us really feel like we planted the seed, or at least continued. So even in the history of Northeastern, there's been some, bumps in the road where my sophomore year playing, they were going to eliminate the program. And that's come up a couple times. So I think we've had, the program itself has had some challenges, and it's the alumni who rally at this point, and just make sure, like, everything that we've done is still has a purpose.
Absolutely.
So,
No, and it's cool. I mean, it's just a cool
yeah.
thing to hear. I'm all about alumni. It was the first thing I did as a head coach, was really try to get alumni re-involved back in the program, or some that have never been involved in the program, to get them involved in the program. So I understand how important alumni is. And so you had a great career. Obviously, you won the Bean Pot. You were captain, like we said. And then life after Northeastern, I mean, you're at that crossroads a little bit, that you've played hockey. It's been hockey for you. And, some players decide what they want to do after that. And you kind of got associated with USA Hockey a little bit, and you played in some tournaments in Lake Placid. I know when we talked, I mean, talk about that next step for you after Northeast, and what you kind of did, and the road that you went down to continue your playing career a little further.
So it kind of went hand in hand, as far as it was, I think, going into my senior year of college, when USA Hockey had invited you to camps to try out festivals and stuff. So I was, involved a little bit, and I went to Lake Placid. We played in a tournament against Canada, and I believe I don't know if it was Sweden or Switzerland. I can't remember. It's so long ago. Because all that really mattered was that we were growing the game, and an opportunity to play with the best players at that time. So I was involved in USA Hockey as long as you were invited. So if you were getting the invite to go, then it was a good day, it was a good time. So I did stay involved as long as I could, until they told me no, So it was brief, but, as far as at that high level, I wasn't ready to give it up. Hockey it's a part of my fiber. I started from the days of Tony Bova asking me to join to play, and it's part of who I am. So I wasn't ready to give it up. And then I wanted to make sure I was paying it forward as well, coaching wise, because I know what the sport has done for me, not only life lessons, but just everything from my teammates, my experiences, my travels. I wanted to make sure I could give that opportunity to somebody else. So yeah, USA Hockey was awesome. I mean, it was pretty incredible at the time. Like some of your fiercest opponents, UNH, Providence, and at the time Brown and BC, they were making their way. Their top players were at these festivals. It was just probably the best hockey I've ever played, or with, So it was pretty incredible experience,
Yeah.
humbling.
It's awesome. I mean, it just shows how great of a player you were, and obviously your love and passion for the game and how you pursued it. And, we're talking across the country. I mean, across the country, it's
Oh,
not just a local area or a state. I mean, you're playing across the country with some of the
yeah.
best players in it. So it's awesome. And
And
you
I
alluded
will,
to it. Oh, go ahead.
I'll add that, across the country, everybody from across the country in Canada at the time, they were the ones coming to Northeastern, UNH, Providence. And then it started to grow, which was great. But it was, everybody came here to play,
So
you
you
know?
knew a lot of these girls then playing in these
Oh
festivals and
yeah.
these tournaments. You knew a lot of
Yeah.
these girls.
Yeah. And it's
Oh,
funny because then you'd play against them and you'd be, just, opponents, nasty, and then your friends, off out
right.
the buzzer rings and hey, what's going on,
Yeah. How's life?
Yeah. Some of the best kids, some of the best people in the world. So
Yeah, well, and you alluded to this earlier, but and I mean this, I think you are a trailblazer. I mean, look what you've done. You played in a time that you were playing with the boys before girls hockey even, was this getting into the category of boys hockey, and you were able to kind of, blaze the trail. Let's just say it, for the youth that the professionals that are playing right now, these girls that are playing like the Chelsea Goldbergs and the PWHPA that are playing now for the next generation of girls who are trying to make this a sustainable lifestyle that they could be
right.
professional hockey players and make a salary. You started that. You kind of broke that open. I mean, do you look at yourself like that and never think like, I am a part of this start, I am a part of a small piece, but I'm a part of helping women's hockey grow in this country?
Yeah, it's not something that it's not a conceited thing or anything like that, but the last Olympics, right, when US won the gold back, right, and you hear the commentating and it's great. You're hearing the female commentators, the girls that have played and have experience, they know what they're talking about. But yeah, when they say trailblazers, I do feel that, especially like Olympic time, you're there watching because you know what? That was you chasing that dream at one point, or even the generation just before me, right? Um, they're the real trailblazers, but they didn't have the opportunity. The programs weren't there as far as the college programs just yet. So they're the ones that actually planted the real seed. And then we started to grow it. And then someone like Chelsea, I know I'm pretty certain she was coached by Linda Lundgren, who was not only a friend before college, but one of my teammates. And she's the epitome of the Northeastern Husky. She stayed working on campus, became an assistant coach, and she has worked tirelessly to make sure that you always give back to your program, know where you came from, the same message. But people like Chelsea have embraced that, and it shows. Like she's doing it. She's experiencing the growing pains as far as at the professional level to sustain it as a lifestyle. Those are the growing pains that we had as a college program. So it has grown a lot, but now it's trying to get it to the finish line.
Right.
And to hear that Chelsea's still doing what she's doing, but she's really humble and she knows what she has and the work that needs to be done, and she doesn't take it for granted either. So it's refreshing too.
Yeah, and talking to you and listening to you, I mean, that's it. Whether you look at it as you're a big part or a small part, you're a part of this. And I think it's
Absolutely.
important to recognize that and make sure that you understand that. I mean, 20 years from now, hopefully women's hockey is a sport that, you know, they're making very good money and can have a family and live off of that salary just like any other boy sport. So
Right.
to know that you're a part of that, I mean, your players should know that, your girls should know that. We'll talk about them later. You know, they played for you, but people should realize that about you. And if they don't, well,
Thanks.
now they know. So
Well, thanks. Thanks to
yeah.
you. And
Um, yeah, and so I know that after Northeastern, again, you coached at Northeastern a little bit. I know that you coached at Brookline, and then you kind of became a mom, you know, and being a mom is the number one responsibility out there. So, you know, it took you away from coaching a little bit, not necessarily the game itself, but in 2008, I know that you returned to Medford as an assistant coach, but coaching in the program. And you had some squads there. I mean, you had some pretty good players. I mean, the Brittany Lanzillis, the Kaylee Lanzillis are assisted, the Adriana Perrazzo's, you know, your daughters, Brenner and Rayanne. I mean, you coached them, you know, later on when you became a head coach. But talk about some of the hockey talent you saw come through Medford when you got back there in 2008.
yeah, well, you know, it's really strange. I had just had my son. He was like 6 weeks old, and the great Dave McCarthy, who was my junior high gym teacher.
I was going to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was at the school pushing the stroller, and he's like, I want to talk to you. And so he had taken over the program, and he said, I know you got a young family, but I'd love for you to join my team and jump on board as my assistant. And yeah, little did I know I was jumping into a program that was just already just awesome as far as, you know, it was still kind of new. I will say that Medford, I think at that point it was in its fourth year, maybe fifth. So he was still taking it on, but Medford Rec had done the work, and they put the work in for girls hockey. So we had a feeder system that was coming in, and yeah, Brittany Lanzilli, Adrian Perrazzo, Sam Lopalato, Ailish Fallon, like there were a couple years, I mean, we had some real skill. And working with Dave was one of the best experiences of my life. I've never met a man with so much respect and character and integrity in my life. One of the best, truly the best people I've ever known in my life. So working with him for, I think it was 7 years, maybe 8, I learned so much from him, not even just from the hockey aspect, but just as a person, how to carry yourself. And just when you think you know it, you know something, you know, you see it differently sometimes when you get a lesson given to you from someone like Dave. So yeah, I loved working with Dave. He was the best.
Yeah, and I know I have a great Dave McCarthy story. I mean, I got to work with him for a few years when I was permanent subbing at the school that I'm currently at now. And I started when I was like 21. So I mean, I'm 38 now. So we're talking 17 years. Dave hasn't missed one of my birthdays. When he was still working at the school, he would put a birthday card in my mailbox every single year, and he knew it. And even when he retired and stopped working at the school to this day, you know, he was sending it to Medford, and then I moved to Wilmington, and I now get cards sent to me in Wilmington. So that's just the type of guy he is, the type of man that he is. And whenever I see him, it's always just, I'm happy and like love to conversate with him, you know?
Yeah. I actually, quick story. Well, I'll do 2 quick stories. When I was coaching at Brookline, I think I got like coach of the year or something, right? Which was a great honor. Not that I'm just missing that, but it was phenomenal. And my AD calls me in like, I don't know, April, and says, hey, you got some mail here in the mailbox. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. He says, you know, come on in. So it's a card from Dave McCarthy.
Yeah.
Sent it to Brookline High School, to my AD, to make sure I got it. And then, of course, every year, my own daughters get a congratulatory, like, hey, great job on a great season. Like, he is just that man. He keeps track of these kids, and he cares. So he still has it in him. You know,
absolutely.
That's him as a person. That just tells you who he is.
Yeah, incredible guy. He coached at, you know, Wakefield boys hockey for a really long time before that too. So he was, he's quite a guy. He really is.
I think he has something like over 200 victories in his career. Over. Yeah. I mean, I think that speaks for itself.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But then eventually you kind of took that program over for him. And, you know, I was an assistant coach for a long time. And when you take a program over, the one thing you realize is there's so many things you're responsible for that you never realized you were actually going to be responsible for until the season starts, because you are the other person everything goes to. So talk about that transition a little bit. I know you have a lot of hockey experience, you understand the game really well, but just maybe the transition of being a head coach and some of the things that you maybe took on that you didn't realize were a part of the job.
Well, I think it wasn't that difficult of a transition only because I was the head coach at Brookline. So I had
Okay.
already taken on that responsibility. However, taking it on and having a young family and all the communications and technology definitely was different. It's supposed to be easier, but I feel like technology can be super challenging. And but I don't know necessarily like, pucks and or how, who's gonna do this. And yeah, Dave did assign a lot of the things that I didn't have to, right? Um, but it wasn't that difficult. And I guess knowing at that time, also knowing every girl that was in the program and coming in, it wasn't difficult. And obviously working with athletics at Medford High School has been one of the easiest, pleasurable things. Bobby Maloney and Rachel Perry have been awesome. So it's been an easy transition, and the resources that are available are just, they make that, for those reasons it has made it not really difficult, less challenging than a lot of coaches deal with. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously having your athletic director support or your assistant athletic director support
Oh,
does make your life a lot easier, and they're able to help you transition with some things that, maybe you got so much on your plate already. So anything that they can
right.
take off of it or make easier for you is just, it's golden. It really
Yeah.
is. So when you take over a program like that, I mean, you learned a lot from Dave, and you really understand the game and so on and so forth. But what would you say was like your biggest change in culture? Like, what was something that you wanted to maybe establish in your program? Because this is my program now, and this is one thing that I want to make sure that we kind of like live off of.
Right. So I didn't think that, not that anything was, I didn't have to change much because
Right,
Dave
right.
was such a stoic. Uh, I don't I don't know if I would even have enough great words to say about him. I think it was the relatability at some point when it comes to female athletes and um, a female coach. But I just wanted to reinforce everything that Dave did, but on a level where it was a little bit more relativity to me being a female. Um, you know, it's just a naturalness of, a male head coach to a female head coach. Not good, bad, or indifferent. It was just that the culture happened naturally. I didn't need
Yeah.
to have to want to change anything. But it was the relatability. Um, and setting, there's a way to go, like having a standard, like this is what I would like, setting your goals, but you have to have reasonable goals as well, based upon your personnel and what you have on the roster. And, I think those are the things that I really focused on. And family, I wanted to make sure that they understood that, we're a team, but this is family for the next 3 months. So
Yeah. And listen, we talked about Northeastern earlier. I mean, that's what you were really saying, especially even after Northeastern, of how you guys are a family and keep in touch and
yeah,
alumni base. So I could see you totally building, the foundations of your program on that, just that
yeah,
alone.
yeah.
But let's dive into your mind a little bit. I want to dive into your
Oh
coaching
God.
mind a little bit. And the first thing I want to bring up is penalty kill. I think special teams in hockey, like in any sport, is so important. It can win you a game or lose you a game. And I had Natalie Flynn on here a few weeks ago from Allentown Catholic, and we talked about setting up a power play. But I want to focus on penalty kill. What are the four people that you're looking to put out there? Are they typically your best four skaters, or are you looking for the girls at the top who are playing, against their point to be able to sacrifice their body and take a shot or take a wrist shot, take a slap shot? I mean, how are you looking at building a penalty kill when it comes to that situation to you in a game?
Yeah, so again, it just depends on your personnel and what you have for depth in your team and in your program to begin with. But one of the things that we say, you're not two forwards, you're not two defensemen out there, you're four players. So you might end up switching. So I want my hardest working, strongest players, not necessarily your best, but your strongest and your smart players. So The challenging thing about high school hockey, like I'll use this season as an example. I had 4 defensemen. I had a short, I didn't have a lot of depth at defense. So a lot of the times your defenseman is the one taking the penalty, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason,
Right.
it just happened. So now you're down to 3. So that changes the mindset on a penalty kill. Sometimes you're using 3 forwards, 1 D. So you just have to remind them you're just 4 players out there. And, basically I run, it's not anything difficult. You're running a box, and then you might collapse your box a little bit depending on how the other team runs their power play. But for me, I want my hardest working fast. You want them fast and smart players, gritty. Yes, the kid that's not afraid to block the shot.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes you're still teaching that at this level. So there's no super science behind it. It depends, again, on your personnel and who you have available. Because even if it is a forward that takes the penalty, it might be your best forward or your best penalty killer as well. So there's so much that you're changing within the game. So it's not, you can have a foundation of a system, but it all depends on the actual moment.
And do
So,
you find girls being like, Coach, I want to go out there. Coach, I want to kill this penalty. Coach, or is it like something you got to really kind of, like in football, I know special teams, sometimes you got to like really teach the kids and show the kids how important and valuable special teams is. Is that something you have to do, or you find girls
absolutely.
want to get out there?
But every kid wants to get out there. There's no doubt, right? And
Yeah.
that's one of the most refreshing things. If they want to get out there, that's a great sign. So, and you're teaching beyond just the simplicity of the game at that point, right? You're making them think, all right, yeah, I know you can skate, I know you can shoot a puck, but this is what you need to do in the situation, or this is why you don't chase behind the net on a penalty kill, right? Because they're harmless behind the net. So let them stay there, don't chase. You're already down a person. So yeah, certain things on the penalty kill is, you need to actually hold the reins a little bit. You got to teach them to be a little bit more reserved.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Again, and that's the whole part of the element of coaching that I love is just everyone systematically is a little different and has their theories about things. And, everyone's systems, is somewhat the same, but everyone has their own tweaks to it or things that they like to do in certain situations. So it's always good to hear a little bit about special teams. One of my biggest questions I have for you, and this, I love asking hockey coaches this is, how important is goaltending? Like I look at goaltending, like I look at a quarterback in football, right? Like a quarterback in football can make or break you in a season in a sense that they can win you some games based off of their athleticism, making a few plays, and keep you in some games that you might have no business being in. I mean, do you feel that that's a fair comparison for a goaltender in hockey, that they can win you some games and keep you in some games, and how important that is?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it can be the foundation of how you run your whole system as far as forecheck, or even if you have tremendous goaltending, you can be a little bit more risky offensively. Or because you can take the risk of, all right, if it's a 2-on-1, your goaltender is that good to be able to give you a chance to stop it. So yeah, goaltending they're the backbone, right? And then of course, then you set up your system as far as defensively, like good defense. Your good defense creates great offense, right? So if your best defenseman is your goalie, you're in a pretty good position. So
yeah. And that's what I figured. I mean, and it's not saying that your team can't win without great goaltending, but you see it in the playoffs now. I mean, I'm sure you're watching playoff hockey right now, and the most impressive thing is how some of these goaltenders are playing very early on. I mean, you're looking at shots and saves that goalies are making that, games could be really out of reach if some of these goalies aren't making the plays that they're making or the saves that they're making. So at the high school level, I kind of figured it was very similar, to that. So,
yeah, I mean, like you said, can a goalie steal a game and win a game? Absolutely, and a goalie can lose a game, right? But on the flip side, you can always say, what I find funny is the goaltender, and thankfully I'm not a goalie mom, but it's so easy to pick up the one mistake that they made the whole game, the one mistake, right? And so much pressure on them. So, but Yeah, I mean, and we tease goalies. It's this special world that they live in. They're just different creatures. So
Right.
they're fun people for sure. But if you have a good goalie in high school hockey, you're gonna contend.
Yeah. I mean, goaltender in any sport, right? I mean, hockey, lacrosse, soccer, I mean, you name it. Like, you got to have a different mindset, because like in hockey, you're like, yeah, I want guys to take or girls to take 70, 80, 90 miles an hour slap shots at me all the
Yeah,
time and like have to be an acrobat in every direction. And yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
and it's
So
fun for them.
yeah, they love it. That's the best part. Like to them, it's just like so fun. And like
Yeah,
where most people you're sitting there and like you said, the pressures of playing that position in general in goalie,
yeah.
there's a lot of pressure. I mean, sometimes you even watch professional games like Tuukka Rask play unbelievable, right? And then he has
He
one
lets
bad
that 1 week
game.
goal in, and everybody hates him.
Everyone hates him. And he's a topic of conversation for 4 hours on the radio. And and you look at around and you're just like, yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot to play. So
Yeah,
yeah, I could totally see that. One special thing I really think, and I've had one other coach on here, actually, ironic enough, Matt Galusi, who teaches in Medford, now is in
yeah,
Melrose. He coaches his daughters in lacrosse currently, but you've had the opportunity to coach your oldest daughter, Brenna, and your younger daughter, or your middle daughter, your middle child, youngest
yeah.
daughter, Rayanne. And I got to have them in school, and they're really special girls and awesome girls and just like all around great kids. But talk about balancing that, like of coaching them as coach, and having expectations for them there, but then also being mom and kind of having to bring that home sometimes and how you balanced it really well.
Yeah. It wasn't, you know what I'll say? Tip my hat to them because, well, first of all, let me say this. When I started coaching at Medford, my girls weren't even playing hockey yet. So it was so fun to actually walk that journey with them as they got involved. But when they did start playing hockey, I made a promise to myself and to them that I would never be that parent just because it was my passion or because of my knowledge that I would throw it down at them and because I told you or anything like that. So I think I stayed pretty true to that promise. And I think if you talk to my girls, they would say that. I always said, I won't say anything until they come to me and ask. And that was at youth hockey games. We get in the car and it was just, I wouldn't say a word other than, good job, loved watching you or whatever. Never anything. If they asked a question, sure. Now the floodgates are open. I'll
Hey, yeah,
tell you whatever
you
you
asked, you
asked,
asked.
you know. Um, but in terms of in their high school year, so like I said, it was so fun to watch them just progress and fall in love with the same sport that I loved, right? So that was awesome. And then Brenna was able to play in her 8th grade year before high school because of the waiver, and she got to get a taste of Coach McCarthy and really just soak all his knowledge in. And she kind of related to like anything I would come home and talk about as a coach prior to them playing. She's like, now I know what you mean by Coach McCarthy. Like he is just so thorough and intense. He wasn't intense like in a raw, like screaming. He just loved the game that much and he was so passionate about teaching it. So that's where his intensity lied. So she was able to get that. So when I was able to transition to head coach her freshman year, and then further down the road when Rayanne joined the team, it wasn't difficult. I'll be honest. When I was at the rink, the deal was I'm coach at the rink, always coach at the rink. And it was never a problem. If anything, it was a problem for them when I had to make decisions on personnel to put out. I had to put a little bit more thought about, okay, you got the senior that has some experience, but then I got my own kid who's a freshman who has more talent, but hasn't earned their keep yet either. It's not just about your best players. It is, you're putting it out varsity hockey, you want your best players. But when it's like just that close in comparison, you want experience sometimes. So I did feel sometimes that I was actually reluctant to put my own kid in a situation or on the ice on first line, second line, because they were the coach's kid. So they had to work, I think, a little bit harder. Now that they're done playing for me, they had to work a little bit harder to prove themselves. But it was easy, and it didn't come home. It never came home. I I felt really bad for them at some points of they had to earn the trust of their teammates and their peers, because sometimes they were, I don't want to say felt bad for them, but they were subjected to not being invited out socially because that's coach's
Right.
daughter. She's going to go home and tell coach we were doing this. Not that they were doing anything wrong. They were just being teenagers.
Yeah.
So that's where mom came in and said, hey, you need to earn the trust of your peers and reassure them that they're your family, they're your sisters, in terms of they're your team. So at some points they had some challenges, but overall it was pretty seamless. It really was.
That's great.
And it
That's
was
awesome.
pretty incredible to be able to say that I was able to coach my own daughters, especially knowing when I took this job on, they weren't even hockey players. So that was never in the cards when I first took this on. So as it progressed, it was just an incredible experience. So humbling, so proud of them. Proud of them as a coach, but proud as mom too,
Yeah.
to
No,
see
it's
them.
awesome. I mean, not many
Yeah.
coaches get to experience that. And just to hear the way that you did it. I mean, my dad coached me growing up, and those were the same exact things. Someone had to serve a penalty, it was me. If somebody had
Yeah.
to sit out an inning, it was me. Like, it was
Yeah.
always me. And as a kid, you don't understand that. But as you get a little bit older and you have that next coach at that next level, you start to get it and understand it more. And you're like, man, they taught me this. Like, I didn't really realize how important that was even just in the mentality of being a player and being a good teammate.
Right. And they had a
So
little bit more to prove, I think. Not to me as mom, not to me as coach, but for their teammates,
yeah,
And I will say, overall, that their teammates, they understood, like, coach was coach. It wasn't, hey, let me call Rayanne, let me call Ray and find out what time practice is. No, ask coach.
yeah,
It's like
that's
just
cool.
this, yeah, yeah. Well, ask
um,
mom. No, text coach. Not even text. It was find out from coach.
yeah,
you know?
page coach,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, and I think that's it's cool. It's cool to hear that. I mean, I had your girls in school, and they're as humble as they can be, and then when they were just better than a lot of the boys in class in some of the sports when I had them, and just how humbling and nice they were. And that's a
Aw,
direct reflection of you and how you
I
brought
hope
them
so.
up and how you coached them. So I want to jump into our last question before we jump into the 2-minute drill here. And I love to ask coaches this question, and specifically this month, because we've gotten some phenomenal answers. But, as a former collegiate athlete yourself and now a head coach, talk about your advice, I guess, just to, female athletes in general, female coaches in general, about that are interested in playing at that next level or interested in jumping into the world of coaching. What would be the advice that you would give them if they decided to go down that avenue?
So I think one of the things you have to say is, why are you doing it? Why do you want to do it? And if it's for all the right reasons, then 100% just dive in. You're going to make mistakes, and it's okay if you make mistakes, or you don't know what you're doing. Sometimes it's part of your growth process as a person, as a coach. Don't be afraid to not be good or lose games, or figure out why you want to do it and what's the purpose. And if there's enough reason to pour yourself into it 100%, just do it.
Yeah.
It's the most rewarding. For me, it's been so rewarding. And I think because it helps me reflect my journey, my road. I love being able to still talk that Tony Bova asked me to play hockey. I still love being able to talk about playing boys hockey in Medford. And at the time, you had the Sackos, the Bates, you can go on and on. I mean, it's just,
Kachucks, yeah, yeah,
yeah, Keith Kachuk was my teammate all through youth hockey.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, the fact that my experiences, not that what I lived, I'm trying to throw on my kids that I coach, but if anybody wants the coaching aspect, just go and do it. And then as far as anybody wanting to get into the sport, always looking to grow the sport. One, like you said, I'm part of planting the seed here, but just, you don't know. At the time when I was playing, I just did it because, not because I was good at it, because I loved it and I had fun at it. So that still needs to be the very same foundation for kids today, not because you can go play college hockey or you can play for Team USA. It still has to be that simple foundation of you love it and you have fun.
Yeah.
And then if you have those two components and you're willing to work hard, good things are going to happen.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great advice. And
Yeah.
and when I coach, I say the same thing to kids. I'm like, play for the kid that fell in love with the game way back when. That's who you play for every single game.
Yeah. And I think part of that for me, part of the coaching is I coach because I want to help somebody else fall in love with the game that gave me so much, gave me so many experiences that I don't know I would have had. So, yeah.
Cool. No, it's really cool. So we're going to jump into our last segment here, our 2-minute drill. This is our fun segment. I've had a lot of coaches that give me great feedback about this. And this is how it works. I'm just going to ask you a few questions, rapid fire style, 1 or 2 word answers. Most coaches go beyond that. So we're pretty cool about it. But again, just a fun segment, get some fun answers out of you and have a good time here. Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to set the timer, and here we go. As a college hockey player, what was the one team you wanted to beat bad every single year?
UNH.
UNH. Awesome.
And Providence.
Okay. So just because you had mentioned earlier, because they're just those types of programs?
Yeah, those are your rivals. Yeah.
Okay. For
sure.
Song that still gets you pumped up before a game?
Right Now. And the Hey song.
Okay. I love it. This is one of my favorite questions. I love hearing all these different answers to it. Toughest place to play as a coach, like one place that you guys go play and it's just a tough spot to play.
At high school?
Yeah, high school.
Winthrop. I'll just throw Winthrop. Yeah.
Okay. One word that would describe your coaching behavior on the bench.
Passionately calm. How's that?
Passionate's a big one. So I'm going to flip it.
I am passionate, but I'm very calm. That's one of the lessons Dave McCarthy taught me. Okay. I guess it's my nature anyway, but with that calmness is passion. It bleeds through, I think.
What would your players say? What would be one word your players would say, you think?
Calm.
Okay. So it's calm around. I like it.
I think so.
On a breakaway, you get on a breakaway. What was your move?
It all depends what the goalie gave you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I had a favorite one. I guess it wasn't like the Lamoureux when she won the Olympics.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I guess any move that you scored, I guess, was my best move.
Okay. I love it. And last question, who is the fastest Forbes, you or your daughters? Who's the fastest one in the family? In a race, who would win?
My daughters.
Okay. Very safe answer there. Very safe answer. Well, that's it. You've survived the 2-minute drill. And I want to thank you coming on here. I mean, I said at the top, and I'm going to say it again. I mean, you really are a trailblazer. I mean, someone who, played a predominantly boys game in this area, was able to play collegiately, and you paved the way. You were a big part of these female athletes that are playing, these female hockey players that are playing, like the Chelsea Goldbergs and the PWHPA, and they're playing for the rights of these girls, like I said, in the future, to make this a sustainable lifestyle. You had a lot to do with that. I had your kids in school, and to see the type of kids they were, it reflects the type of mom you are, and obviously reflects the type of coach that you are. So what you're doing is great. Keep doing it. Keep doing awesome. And again, from Beyond Podcast, I'm your host, Anthony Petralis. Rayanne Forbes, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very honored that in this month, big month, that you chose, very wise, and you chose me. And, being one Medford person to another, lots of pride in that, always a Mustang. And I'm proud of what you're doing as well. I mean, this is just awesome. And I thank you, humbly thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, honor was all mine. I thought I reached out to you right away. I reached early out to you
Yeah,
about it because I just knew your story was phenomenal and that you would be, you know, for your players that are listening or family and friends that know you that maybe don't know the whole story and understand the whole
yeah.
story, that they got a little bit of a taste of it and understand it. So, I was really glad that you were able to tell it on here. So you're welcome
Okay.
back anytime.
All
And
right.
we hope to have you on down the road at some point again.
All right.
All
Love
right.
to.
So till next time, I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, Rayanne Forbes, Medford High School Hockey. Till next time.